Recently, we uploaded a start-to-finish how-to video on installing VMware ESXi 7. In following along with that, we also wanted to release a follow-up video on how to install updates and patches for your hypervisor to keep it safe and secure. Let's get to it. Like everything else out there, vulnerabilities are being discovered and bad guys are trying to take advantage of unpatched virtual hosts. Like any piece of software, from time to time you're going to need to update your ESXi to protect it. Even if those are protected by a firewall and not directly exposed in any way, you should adopt good patching practices. Thankfully, this isn't a painful process and we can do it pretty quickly. However, you're going to need some software installed ahead of time. First things first, you're going to need an SSH client to SSH into your ESXi host. If this sounds scary, it's not. We'll get through it, I promise. If you're on Windows and are unfamiliar with the Windows subsystem for Linux, we recommend getting PuTTY downloaded and installed. For those of you rocking Linux or Mac OS and have a terminal handy, jump over to the next timestamp. Pop open your browser and enter PuTTY into the search engine of your choice. PuTTY has been the OG SSH and Telnet client for Windows for a long time and is fully trusted and safe. Scroll down till you see the link to download PuTTY and click it. The PuTTY website hasn't changed the entire time I've known about it, so take a moment to enjoy that circa 1990s internet nostalgia. Once you've drunk deeply of its retro feel, select the 64-bit MSI package, assuming you're on Windows 10, and get it downloaded. Choose a location and click Save. PuTTY is pretty lightweight and downloads quickly. Once it's downloaded, launch the installer. Welcome to the PuTTY install wizard. This is pretty much a next, finish sort of installation, so follow the prompts to install it. All you need are the defaults. Once it's all done, click Finish. PuTTY is one of these tools that are indispensable for a home lab, so keeping it around is a good idea. Moving on. Before we can update, we need to enable the SSH service on our host to log in via the SSH console. By default, and as a security measure, the SSH service is disabled, so let's take care of that first. Back to your browser, log into your ESXi host's web GUI with your root user and password. On the left, click the Manage tab and navigate over to the Services tab and click it. In the main window pane, scroll down until you find TSM SSH service and select it. At the top, click Start to start the service. Once the service starts, you'll see the TSM SSH services status is running. You're good to go. Let's move on to patching our host. Once again, we start at your browser, so open Google and type in ESXi patches. You can download patches directly from VMware, but it's a pain in the butt, and we can do this much more quickly via the command line. We're going to use the site from vfront.de. They keep a running tab on all ESXi patches that are released and make the process really easy. We'll put a link to their site in the description below. Anyway, click the link VMware ESXi 7.0 Patch History. vFront does a fantastic job of providing a ton of details on what components are being patched, what category those patches fall under, and their severity. The most recent update from ESXi is at the top of this page. And thankfully, VMware's patches are cumulative, meaning you don't need to install any previously released patches, only the most recent patch. So, since we are patching to the most recent released patch, we'll click on the image file link here. This will pop up a small text window with the commands we'll be executing from the command line of the ESXi host. We'll minimize the originating window since we don't need that any longer. Next step is to launch our freshly installed PuTTY or your command line environment of choice to get the process underway. Go to Start and open PuTTY. In the hostname or IP address line, type in the IP address of your ESXi host and then click the Open button below. Since this is the first time you've attempted to connect to your host via SSH, you're going to see a security prompt prompting you to decide whether you want to trust this host or not. Click Yes since we trust our host. Now you'll need to log into your host's SSH console, enter in root and then your password. Boom! Welcome to the command line of your ESXi host. There's a ton of stuff you can do via the command line in ESXi, so it's likely you won't be a stranger to this in the long run. Okay, let's get started with the update. In the little window on the right from vfront.de, we're going to copy each line and execute them in the console of the host. We'll be doing this one at a time, but you can copy the entire block and execute it if you'd like. Either way is fine, but we'll do this one at a time to walk you through it. Copy our first line, starting at ESXCLI all the way to the end of HTTP client. Right-click, copy, and jump back over to the PuTTY window. In PuTTY, to paste in the contents of your clipboard, just right-click inside the window. Now hit Enter to execute this command. If you're interested, the command we just executed changes the local firewall policy of the host to allow it to call out via HTTP/HTTPS to download the update. Okay, next command is the big boy. Let's highlight it, copy it, paste it into the command window, and hit enter. This takes a while, so don't freak out. Right now, your ESXi host is reaching out to VMware to download the update and install it. This is highly dependent on your internet speed and your ESXi backend storage. Once this is complete, you're going to see a massive dump of text. Our update took about 3 minutes to complete, but your mileage may vary, so be patient. Finally, let's copy the last command. Select it, copy it, paste it into the command window, and hit enter. This last command reverses the first command we ran, reverting the firewall change. Typing in exit will cleanly close the SSH session on the host. Alright, we're almost done, but we need to reboot our host to boot off of our updated OS. Remember, ESXi runs in memory and we just updated the operating system on the file system and we're still running on the original software. Rebooting completes that process. Let's walk through rebooting your host. Once again, pop up in your web browser and let's log back into your ESXi host. Log back in using your root user and your password. Once you're logged back in, you'll see a message about the host needing to reboot. And you'll see a warning about the SSH server being enabled. When we reboot, SSH will be disabled, so nothing to do there. First things first, we need to either shut down or suspend our virtual machines. So head over to the Virtual Machines tab on the left. We have the one VM we built in the last video and it's currently shut down. If you have any active VMs, you'll need to either shut them down or suspend them so you don't lose data when the host restarts. Assuming you've shut down or suspended your VMs, head back over to your host tab on the left. Before we reboot, best practice is to put your host into maintenance mode. To enable maintenance mode, right-click on the host icon in the navigation pane and select Enter Maintenance Mode. Let's talk about maintenance mode, what it's about, and what you use it for. Maintenance mode is a mode in ESXi that allows the host to prepare for a reboot or a shutdown event. This mode doesn't guarantee the safe shutdown of your VMs, which is why we went through and shut them down first. If your ESXi host was part of a cluster of hosts, using maintenance mode tells the host that it needs to move the VM workloads off of itself onto other hosts. Maintenance mode also tells the rest of the cluster that this host is unavailable for VM workloads and prevents migration of VMs to it. That's a lot of information and you only have a single host. But I want to be clear that this is considered a best practice, so consider using it. Click Yes to continue. Now in maintenance mode, you'll see the icon change to reflect the status of the host. Who doesn't love a little caution tape? Okay, let's reboot your host. Head over to the reboot button and click it. Confirm the reboot and we'll wait for the system to come back up. Once your system is back up, log back into it and you'll notice that the host is still in maintenance mode. Before we can launch VM workloads, we need to take the host out of maintenance mode. So right-click on your host in the navigator pane on the left and select Exit Maintenance Mode. Congratulations, you just updated your host and you're back in business. Pretty easy, right? Okay, let's go get our VM started and get back to home labbing. Head over to the Virtual Machines tab on the left, click on your VM, and click Power On. You're good to go. Tell us what you think of this video. We would love to hear from you. Would you like to see more how-tos? Let us know in those comments below. If this is the first time you've seen us, consider subscribing. Do it right now. We're on Twitter and Instagram, so go follow us and be all social. And finally, we have a Discord we'd love to have you join. Talk about videos we make, home lab, and more. It's a great community and we'd love to have you. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again soon.